Again, welcome everybody to the live hangout today. We've got an awesome interview. I'm actually really excited for this interview. This is a first time that I've ever interviewed somebody in the group that's been in our group longer than I've been in the group. And I've got Jeff Valance from Raleigh, North Carolina with us. So
Hey,
Jeff, how you doing, man?
doing good. How are you doing, Gabe?
Good, dude. I'm excited to talk to you, Jeff, because you've not just because you've been in the group for, I guess this is your, you started right in early 2015, you first got into Amazon.
Yep.
And we were just talking offline. You were working a full-time job then, and I'm curious to hear about that. And then you made the transition into full-time on Amazon, and you were able to quit your job.
Yep.
We can talk about dates. Was that, when did you officially quit your job, just to preface this?
Officially June 1st, I think, was the date of this year, of 2017.
So just
Yeah.
recently, like less than 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So awesome, man.
Yep.
Well, congratulations first off. And
Thanks.
that's you put the work in for 2 years. But so I want to frame this, man. I want to talk through kind of the good, the bad, the ugly of going through the transition of quitting your job, doing Amazon full time. And I know you've gone through the journey of you've done retail arbitrage. You do mostly OA now. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. And just to frame our conversation as everyone's jumping on here, what's up, John Hilton? I see you guys in the Facebook Live. For those of you guys that are on live, I want to start kind of with where you guys are at today, Jeff, and I'd love to walk backwards through how you guys made that transition and talk through maybe some of the mistakes and some of the things you guys learned along the way. But you guys are just shy of cracking $1 million in lifetime sales.
Yes.
And so I'm curious, what are your total sales on Amazon? You guys are around 900,000 right now, or where are you guys at?
We're right around 900,000. At my current 30-day sales velocity, it's telling me I'm about $125,000, $126,000 in 30 days. So I should break that this month to $1 million. And then so 700,000 of that was this year. And then my profit margin is anywhere from about 17.5% to 20%, give or take. I haven't done the exact numbers this year yet, but that's kind of where we're around right now.
Cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. I know you don't share that to brag, but I love talking about the net of things, like what it, because a lot of people hear that big number and they're thinking, oh my gosh, $1 million. What they don't see is that this is your third Q4 now. Is that right?
Yeah, it's my third Q4. Yeah.
Okay, so third Q4, and you did 700,000 of that 900,000 in sales this year.
This year, right?
So that means that the first 2 years probably looked a little different.
Yeah, the first 2 years looked a little different. So kind of heading back, it was okay. In 2014, 2015, we were praying, thinking about, okay, we want to get into a business. We want to be financially free. We, we did some MLM stuff. I'm sure everybody probably has done a little bit of that here and there.
Okay, there's no shame, man.
No shame. Yeah.
We're all friends.
Right. And so that didn't go very good, obviously. And so Zach, who a lot of people may remember is in this group, kind of posted about selling on Amazon. And so right after we had been talking and praying about it, so we kind of jumped on it, learned a lot, and then 2015 was when we really kind of started to go for it. But when I say started to go for it, it was like, okay, $100 here, $100 there, mostly because we just didn't have the money at the time, so we just kind of built it really slowly. I'm sure the first year I probably made like 20K for the whole year, and it was like, whoa. But humble beginnings, man. And I think that year as well, we made quite a few bad purchases. We did some bulk purchasing and stuff, and we just kind of misread keeper charts occasionally and stuff like that. And so it was a good learning curve. In terms of, we started fairly low with not much, which, was frustrating because it's like we'd source some stuff, say for a few $100s, and then, we'd have to wait weeks and weeks and weeks for us to come back to us, basically. So, there was a lot of frustration there initially because it's like, well, I'm starting to find more things that I can buy, but, my budget was balanced slash unbalanced. We needed the money initially. And so, it was frustrating seeing all these great deals and then, not being able to buy a lot of them because, we just didn't have that leverage at the time. So.
Yeah, man. Humble beginnings. I appreciate you sharing about that. I wanted to before we get into it, man, I just wanted to ask.
Yeah.
And you live in Raleigh, North Carolina now. Are you
Yes,
originally from the States, or do I sense an accent from somewhere?
Yeah, originally I'm from England, so hey to everyone representing England there. But yeah, we lived for most of my time in the States. I've been in Pennsylvania, and then the last 6 months or so in North Carolina. So
Just moved. Okay. And
yeah.
just to start, do you work this business alone, or does your wife work the business with you, or how's your team set up?
So officially, yeah, it's mostly just me. But my wife helps when she can. She homeschools, so she's pretty busy with all that. And then before we moved, actually, before like we really scaled up and we were doing, $100,000 months. God save the Queen. Yeah. The before we were doing that, my wife was doing a lot of the packing and stuff because she wasn't homeschooling at that time. So she did quite a bit of that. My in-laws help out a little bit here and there, and they'll do some RA sourcing and use my account for that. So I kind of help them, manage them, monitor that a little bit too. So it's mostly actually just me still, though, officially. Although I'm working towards getting some VAs, getting some help there. I know it's been discussed in groups before. It's just like, find stuff that you don't like doing and find other people to do it for you.
Yeah, we can talk through scaling. That's a whole startups one conversation, and scaling is a whole other conversation.
Right. Yeah. Sorry, I'm rabbit trailing there. So.
I do want to ask you, and what's up, Al? I see Alexander in chat. Randy, what's up, Randy? I see you cracking me up. John Hilton has a really good question. We could talk about the early days, those first 2 years where you kind of were in the startup phase. But John had a good question. When you made the jump from year 2 to year 3, when you jumped from doing 20,000 on Amazon to doing 700,000, what was his question? Is what is the mindset shift that caused that shift in abundance for you?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of it was like you said, a mind shift, believing that I can do that. At one point along my journey, I kind of got a little overwhelmed, and I know we've talked about it. I feel like this was like a bit of a turning point for me. Doing like a 40, 50 plus hour a week job that was a pretty high stress job. There was sometimes a tendency to get a little overwhelmed, especially as I tried to expand and everything like that. So I really felt like I needed to stop and like really kind of refocus, because I was getting pulled in lots of different directions and stuff like that as well, trying to expand it. And so I kind of stopped doing Amazon for a couple of weeks, just kind of let it keep rolling on. And, really focused in on, like, I asked myself kind of, started looking at my why again, looking at my goals. And my goal for 2017 was to quit my job. And that was my semi goal in 2016, was I knew in 2017 I quit my job at the scale I was going. So, I just kind of stopped, thought about it, prayed about it, looked at my goals and my vision, and really kind of asked myself, okay, what's going to get me there now? Like, what am I good at right at this moment? And for me, it was like sourcing online arbitrage. There was a lot of stuff at the time about like merch and going wholesale, and even things like shoes and stuff. And I know, is it Randy's really good with shoes, but I've never been able to do really great with those. So did you go? I quit. That was once or twice I really did feel like quitting, because it was so frustrating, not being able to scale. And I know we can talk about that in a minute, but it was really just kind of looking at what I was good at and then kind of doubling down and honing in on that, and then really scaling up on that and kind of putting things like where I wanted to go in 2 or 3 years' time, like private label and stuff, and putting all the kind of the buzz stuff to one side and really focusing in on what I was really good at. And that was sourcing online and leveraging that. So.
Okay, man, that's key what you just said there, and I want you guys to get this because I've heard this from many successful people I've talked to, that you learn how to block out all the noise, and if you feel overwhelmed and you're trying to do too much, there's several 7-figure sellers that I've interviewed, Jeff, that they just do one new thing each year.
Right.
Like, so when you said you focused, you were working a full-time job. I'm just out of curiosity, what was your day job?
I was fixing computers, basically in IT. So, and there was a lot of dealing with people that were frustrated with their computers, and
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was great.
Cool. So you didn't really have a background like in e-commerce, or you had tried home business, but you didn't really have a background with eBay or e-commerce or anything?
No, I mean, I dabble with eBay, just like, I want to get rid of my phone, selling on eBay sort of stuff.
Right.
But nothing like intense, like what we do now. So.
Okay. So big shift. And John, great question, by the way, John Hilton. Love that question. So glad you asked that question, because a lot of people can relate to your story of kind of going through that hustle, and you're a 2.5, 3-year overnight success story, just like everybody is, right? And that's actually, we were talking offline, you thought you could have done it faster. There's one little shift we'll talk about in a second. You think you actually slowed your process down, but the shift that you're talking about making, mindset, the belief, and then so you honed in on OA. So is that your main strategy? You just stopped doing you cut out RA, you cut out wholesale, stopped worrying about private label, just put everything else on pause and just focus on OA. Is that kind of what you did?
Yeah, pretty much. Obviously if I was in a grocery store and I saw something that was, clearance for $2 and I could sell it for 50, then, it's like, okay, well, I'll grab that while I'm grabbing my groceries. But, I mean, like, it was like, okay, I'm not going to go out to the stores. I'm not going to do anything. I really needed to leverage my time and scale what I needed to do. So, it's pretty much 99.9% OA now. So.
Okay, cool. Well, I definitely want to, and if you guys have questions specifically for Jeff, post them if you guys are on live about OA. I am curious how you run your OA, because you're doing some things we were talking offline that are pretty unique from what I see a lot of people in our industry doing as far as OA. And you found a way to scale your time. And to give someone context, your numbers, you said you run like around a 17.5 to 20% net profit margin.
Yep.
So, so that kind of gives it. So your numbers aren't as good as private label and some of the other ones, but you're in a volume business.
Right. So yeah, I mean, like, the thing I'm looking for is like replenishables. So it's not like this business, especially with RA and OA, can be very like volatile. And I saw a question about my lamp. It's actually Walmart, I think, probably when I was sourcing, but yeah, I mean, give us the OA bits. Yeah. So, I mean, it was like sourcing in general for Amazon can be sometimes volatile. Especially in Q4, you'll find a bunch of stuff that you can sell now, but in January, February, it's going to be back to regular prices and Amazon's going to be on the listing again. So my thing pretty early on was like trying to find replenishables, stuff that, not perfect. It's never going to be totally 100% consistent, but find stuff that I could replenish, find stuff that I could replenish from more than one website, and really kind of once I found it, kind of put it in my repertoire. So then I have, like, I don't know if it's hundreds, but a large number of things that I can replenish, rather than, constantly just looking for the next deal. And doing it that way may score you a little less profit margin. But to me, consistency was key, especially if I was going to do it full time. I didn't want to be killing myself looking for $10,000 worth of stuff every week, and not be able to find it. So yeah, basically replenishables is my thing. So.
Okay. Well, what and I see you guys asking about OA, so we'll get into some of the technical stuff of what you're doing, and some of the stuff we may. OA is a technical topic because it's we may have to circle back and do a webinar of sorts to talk more of the, show
Yeah,
people
definitely.
how the strategy is. But from a high level, what are, just on a first level conversation, on a high level, what are the main tools you're using for OA?
So the main one I'm using right now is tactical arbitrage still. I've used it since it mainly came out. That was like a year or two ago. It's not a perfect system by any means, but like we were talking about earlier, before the webinar, it's like you find, it'll find a lot of false positives, so to speak, a lot of mismatches and stuff, but usually within your scans, there's a couple of nuggets that you can use as replenishables, and then you just kind of put that in your replenishable repertoire and you're good to go. So, and then if you just keep doing that, it will compound and keep going. So I'd say that's one of my big tools. If I come across something, like a brand, for example, that Amazon may not be on, sometimes I'll go through manually still, because I'm pretty quick with that sort of stuff now, having had a few years of eyeballing Keeper and all that stuff, and knowing, how much Amazon will take. Being able to eyeball just kind of like brands if Amazon's not on it, but like my scan doesn't come up with it, or it comes up with one of that particular brand, but it might not come up with the rest. So I would say like 90+% of what I do is utilizing that software. And then
so tactical arbitrage, and then when you're doing a manual search, what tool are you using? The Keepa charts? Are you using like any Chrome extensions, or what tools are you using?
Yeah, so I'm using Chrome. I'm using I'm just trying to look at my little list here. I'm using Keepa charts for sure. There's some little thing that tells you the rank. I think DS Domination has one that you can set when looking through Amazon. It'll tell you the rank. There's one called TWF Buy Box Scope. Maybe that's it that I use as well. So it just tells me the rank immediately rather than having to like scroll down the list and look for the rank and stuff. So
yeah, okay. Well, we can, and some of this tech, I was just curious if there are some big things. So mainly you're using tactical arbitrage and Keepa. And I'm curious, when I first heard that, Jeff, there's a lot of people I know who have tried to use tactical arbitrage, and they have a whole community, and the feedback that I've gotten is that it's not been a pleasant experience for most people. Like most people haven't figured out how to do that. So that's why we might have to have a separate maybe webinar or something to show how that, but what's your main strategy when you're doing OA? Can you just walk us through like kind of your process?
Yeah, so my process for looking for OA stuff, I try to keep it pretty broad in terms of like flexible, and so like if I say I'm looking for at least something that's going to make me $1 profit, sometimes it might make me 90 cents, but you look at the Keepa chart and it's historically making $2 profit or something like that. So I don't always kind of poo-poo the stuff that might not look as profitable. So but in general, I'm basically looking for something that's going to make me $1 profit, which does sound kind of low, but if you're getting like small little beauty products or something like that, it takes like 5 seconds and you're good to go. And usually they're fairly volatile, so you'll make $3 on one and $1.50 another time on it and stuff. And kind of profit margin, I don't know. I try and go for like 20% ROI. So whatever that kind of works out in profit margin.
Okay.
So they're fairly lower than what you might get with like an RA, looking at stuff on clearance racks, sort of margins. But as I said, for me, like consistency was key. And, you're not necessarily going to you'll find it occasionally, especially in Q4 now. But you're not going to find always something that's like 200% ROI. And if you do, it's usually sold out, sold out at that point because everyone else has seen it as well. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So you don't have any like fancy criteria. You're looking for $1 profit, 20% ROI. These are like base numbers, and you're happy with that.
Yeah, stick with the simple stuff. I think is I don't try not to overcomplicate it too much. Trying to think if there's anything else that I really look for. I mean, I stick to a few main categories for myself.
Okay.
And that's because I started in beauty. I do a lot of beauty still. Health, personal care, and grocery are my like three big ones. And I sell a few things in automotive. And I sold a few musical instruments for a while, here and there. So, but that I'd say beauty, personal care, health, personal care, and grocery are my three biggest ones.
Okay. And what so that kind of tells, without saying what you sell, you just kind of told what you sell. That's where you find replenishable. So of your current OA, what percentage of your sales now? I mean, you said this month you guys are on pace to do like 126,000.
Yeah, well, that's what it says right now, but it keeps going up every day. But yeah, on pace for that right now.
So is that your goal for Q4, or what's y'all's goal this year?
To sell as much as possible. I mean, my goal for this year was to hit a million total sales. I think maybe initially it was like 1 million for the year, but we'll probably end up hitting like 850,000 for the year, which still isn't too shabby.
Okay.
So that's kind of my goal for the year. And then next year it's to be determined. I'm using the next few weeks to decide what my new goals are for the next year. So
yeah, the new season's it's around the corner, man. I'm doing the same thing. This is the time of year to kind of reset that stuff. But so you shared the categories you're in. I'm just curious, what percentage of your OA is replenishables versus like active sourcing that you have to do each month?
Right. This month is, November and December are a little unique because it's Q4. So I'd probably say, at least size-wise, half of what I'm selling is not replenishable. But even in Q4, you can find like seasonal replenishables. So like I found some, cool little, video games and stuff that were on sale at the beginning of November, and they're still selling, occasionally on sale here and there. So in terms of percentage-wise, I would say in general, not in Q4, it would probably be like 70 to 80%. And then and that's just kind of maybe a random guess. I would say probably at least 20 or 30% new stuff that I add in. And then there's a small portion of like replenishable that I'll either remove from my account or just kind of not replenish for a little bit because it's got the buy box got tanked and stuff like that. So
yeah. Okay. So out of Q4, your majority, 70% is replenishables.
Yep.
You're focused on replenishables, and you're using tactical arbitrage, the software, to find the replens.
Yeah, to find the new ones. And if I see like a coupon for certain websites, like Target a few weeks ago had the buy two get third free on board games and video games, I'll jump on that and see if there's anything as well. So there's certain websites that will have consistent coupons as well. So Target's not very consistent with that, but there are other websites that will have like 20% off groceries or 20% off beauty products, but once a month or something like that. So
gotcha.
So then, for example, like, well, I don't know if I should mention some websites. So there's some websites that have like loyalty programs, and if you don't abuse them, in the seasons where they don't offer, say, 20% coupons for beauty products, for groceries and stuff like that, sometimes you can use the points to kind of offset that to keep it replenished throughout the. Because I found some websites you start ordering too much and they'll like cancel your orders and stuff. But if you kind of space it out and start using some of the reward loyalty points to kind of make that 20% up again, that can kind of help as well. I was noticing some people were asking about shipping. So that's one thing that I still do pretty much all myself. I did start utilizing a prep company that was out of state, that was tax free for me, because I figured, I can pay them the crazy amount of $1.65 per item and still save on the taxes. So so I figured, if my taxes per item is more than $1.65, then I'll use a shipper, because it's like I don't have to touch it then, and just have to kind of follow up with them. But that's one thing that I need to actually, that takes most of my time up still, is shipping stuff myself. So I don't use a shipper. I'm the shipper. My wife sometimes does shipping, but anything over a certain amount, I'll use a prep company that saves me the tax on that and stuff.
So for the majority of it, you guys are still doing your prep work, and then you're just saying for certain, so only for a portion of what you're doing, you're shipping out. Okay.
Right. And that was partly, by design, because we wanted to, save the money. But now it's gotten to the point where it's like, I really would like my time back.
Well, yeah. If you're open, are you open to a little coaching when we're on live?
Yeah, sure.
For where you're at in the business, it's the perfect, once you've mastered kind of the basic fundamentals of, sourcing, and you've overcome the first big challenge that a lot of sellers have, which is,
right.
How do I find product? And then you ran into the second challenge, which is how do I find the capital to get the product? So where you guys are, and you probably know this already, but it's certainly time to outsource and just bring someone in-house. You can have it part-time,
exactly,
a couple days a week. I know there's a lot of sellers that run their whole business off of just like one prep person,
Right. And that's kind of my goal if I continue to keep doing OA stuff, is that. But we thought, it's Q4. We had so much already. It's like, well, I don't know if that would be a good training or bad training, or if we have time to even train. So we're like, okay, well, we know it needs to be done, but we'll push through until the end of the year and then kind of go from there. But yeah, you're right. It needs to happen.
Yeah. No, that's good. There's always next levels of business and growth, and to build and at the end of the day, and I share this for Jeff, for you, and for me, and for everybody. We all are after the same thing, which is freedom. Right. So Amazon's the vehicle, and then you can basically design your business in a way that gives you that freedom for whatever that looks like. And each of us is a little different. Your definition of freedom is probably different than mine, and some people watching maybe just want to like hang out with their kids more and not have to do this stuff. So if you ever catch yourself doing stuff you don't want to do, that's a good time to find someone else to do that. But hey, a specific question, and man, I do want to talk details about TA. And you just made it sound so simple. Like I know, and I know this because I've tried playing with their software and it's confusing and stuff. But Gary Gill asked, do you use, let me pull up his question here. Do you use category store list to do searches in TA? He says he gets way too many mismatch. Do you know what he's talking about?
So like bulk lists, I assume is what he means.
Category store list to do searches.
Yeah. I think that's what that means there. Yes. Sometimes I use theirs. Sometimes I use mine. I'll make my own. So if I have websites that okay, there's a 20% coupon every month or whatever, I kind of have my own little category lists that I make. Yeah, there are a lot of mismatches. There are a few filters I put in. Excuse me, like rank filter. I guess we didn't talk about rank, but bulk list. Okay, so yeah. So like if you don't have a rank filter on it, you're going to get stuff that's like ranked 250,000, but plus all the mismatches that are ranked 250,000. So I actually, one thing I look for is I'm flexible on it, but usually I don't do anything over like a 75,000 rank. Especially like 50,000 for grocery, maybe 75 for beauty, because sometimes right at the tail end where it hits 50,000, it will kind of go up and down a little bit. So I've had products that are like 15, 20,000 rank, and then they'll go all the way down to 60 or 70. And if I had scanned on that day with a 50,000 rank filter, it wouldn't have gone through. And I probably like just went over half of people's heads. But so I do. If it's a new website that I'm not too familiar with, I might use their stuff their bulk lists a little more because, you know, I'm not familiar with the websites, but the websites I source from the most, once I start getting used to them, I'll usually make my own stuff up. In terms of mismatches, tactical arbitrage, yes, does have a lot of mismatches. And like I said, you probably 80% of what you'll find is probably a mismatch, but it's that 10 to 20% of things that you're looking for that are like the nuggets. And there's one website that gives me a ton of mismatches, but sometimes I'll just manually like take a look real quick because maybe I've seen stuff on sale and I'm like, I bet that really is good on sale. So, and I found stuff that way too. So, I wouldn't say like tactical arbitrage is a magic pill by any means, like that every result's going to be exact. If it was that easy, there'd be more people doing it, I'm sure. So, you know, part of it is still doing a little bit of filtering and stuff like that. But it's to me, it's a lot easier than like going out to 5 different stores. So I can spend some time with my kids and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. So, man, I'm just so curious about how you've set that up. Well, first off, how much time are you spending each day doing OA? I mean, we're in peak season right now, so I know it's a special time of year, but
so yeah, it's peak season. It's all day, every day. It's all on my mind. But, you know, I probably spend a few hours going through my replenishables, especially if I know there's a coupon. You know, I might spend like 10, 15 minutes like setting up my TA scans, like getting them going. And then I don't know, maybe half an hour like deleting all the stuff that's not relevant to me, all the mismatches, and then maybe another half an hour doing some ordering. That's a guess. So like my Mondays and Tuesdays, because I get paid, so my payout goes out on a Thursday, but because it's the weekend, I don't get it till Monday. So Mondays and Tuesdays, how I set it up originally was like Mondays and Tuesdays are just my ordering days. So I'll just spend like 2 solid days doing all my ordering, and then replenishables, and then all the TA stuff that I find, you know, that I might have set up like Saturday, Sunday. I'll order all that, and then if I've still got money left over, which I'm finding that I am having a little bit of money left over, you know, I'll go into a bit of Wednesday. But at that point, you know, doing sourcing, it might be 2 solid days, but then for another 2 weeks, I won't have anything to source, basically. But I still do, because, you know, while I'm doing paperwork and stuff, it's kind of fun to take a look at a few things. But
yeah, okay. So so it's a couple hours a day is really what you can sit down and do a sourcing session. You're doing the prepping yourself. What's the key for looking for replens? I mean, again, and I asked this question because I mean, 9 out of 10 people I talk to can't get tactical arbitrage to work. So what are you doing to find replens?
I mean, the first way I was doing it was just finding a product that would sell and then seeing if it kind of constantly stayed around its price. That was kind of my magic formula. And then now I'll probably, you know, especially if I'm going deeper on something, I'll look at the charts a little bit. You know, just for consistency, or to make sure that Amazon isn't on it. So, or if Amazon has previously been on it, that's my big thing. Is like, okay, you know, this, you know, mayonnaise or whatever is selling for $10 right now, and I can make $2 profit on it. But has Amazon? Is it just because Amazon's out of stock right now? And if that's the case, then, you know, either you hustle to get it in, or you know, it's like, okay, maybe the next thing. So, but if Amazon isn't on it or hasn't been on it for a really long time, that's usually a good sign that it's an OA RA sort of thing. And then you just kind of want to make sure the price isn't too volatile on a keeper chart, and voila, you have a replenishable, potentially, at least. I mean, you'll never really know it's a replenishable until, you know, you've had 1 or 2 kind of cycles of ordering it. But but barring like waiting for those cycles to happen, yeah, that would be basically what I'd look at that point.
Okay. So you're basically just looking for consistency when you do your sourcing,
yeah.
and then you keep a running list. I mean, where do you keep your replens? Do you keep this like, I should ask too, are you using
Everyone's going to try hacking my computer now. So he's got a spreadsheet of all his replenishables on his computer. His computer. So no, I use Inventory Lab. So that's where I'll go as well. I don't know. I don't know if I keep an official spreadsheet of replenishables.
You just use Inventory Lab, and use like a tracking system to track which ones are replens, or how do you use Inventory Lab to keep track of that?
Yeah. So if it's not a replenishable, typically I'll go through maybe once a month and delete all the extra stuff from my account within Seller Central. I don't know, like I probably have a spreadsheet somewhere of like some of my replenishables, and then I'll just Monday morning, I know I just know what some of my bigger sellers are, so I just go and reorder a bunch of them. I think I heard someone say one time, like 20% of your inventory is making 80% of your profit, and that's probably the case for what it is. So I mean, I don't know, it sounds bad, but I don't necessarily have a tracking system except my own mind maybe. And like I use Inventory Lab and I see that, okay, this is still in here. Let's just make sure that Amazon's, like the price hasn't tanked or anything like that. So I'll keep tabs on that. But just before I order something, so if the price is tanked, maybe I might not order it this time. So.
Okay, so you're tracking it in an Inventory Lab, and I'm just curious. I'm asking this question because if 70% of your business is these replens, I'm just curious how you run the system, how you find them, how you manage them, and then it sounds like you just keep. One second, I'm gonna close my email. Yeah. It sounds like you just keep focusing on adding replens to it. And then, are you doing anything different in Q4? You said this season's a little bit different. So what's your business look like this month?
So I mean, just silly things like I stayed up till midnight sourcing on Walmart and Target and Best Buy. That was just that was not fun with Best Buy's website, but so staying up a little later. So I've used TA a lot. Like there's a feature in it. It's a little complicated. This feature took me a little while to figure it out, but you can it pulls keeper information from like 2016, so historical information that where Amazon's gone out of stock and stuff like that. So you can create a scan that's basically like based on last year's sales data, can I make profit, for this? So I've done a bit of that, quite a bit of that sourcing, and just like lots of Black Friday and sales sourcing on top of my replenishables. So my goal was like to keep my replenishables going and maybe have a little bit more than normal in there. And then, with some of my extra cash, so to speak, doing all the Black Friday sourcing and everything like that. So.
Okay, so you basically are just adding on top of the normal replenishables, other OA sourcing. You keep talking about different sales from different sites. So I'm sure your membership rewards for all these different places that can show you what's coming up. So okay, I was just curious how things were looked a little bit differently this month. Just out of curiosity, when you what type of volume are you guys spending each month? And I'm asking really from the perspective of like, how much did you have to start spending each month before you felt comfortable to quit your job? Maybe that's a better question than what you guys are spending now. Yeah.
So we had a budget of what I needed to be earning, like to replace my paycheck plus a bit more. So I'm trying to think what we were spending. I think we needed to be spending maybe 20. I hadn't thought about this too much since we did it, because we did have it all written out and everything. So probably maybe like 20,000 every couple of weeks was what we were spending, I would guess. 20 to 30,000. I'm trying to think. Got me on the spot here. So maybe 30,000 a month, maybe.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking.
What are you guys spending? I mean, out of Q4, what are you guys spending on a normal month now?
Well, it's been going up and up every month. So right now we're probably spending like definitely upwards of 50 or 60,000 now. I don't have my official numbers in front of me to be able to say. Partly because, we quit my job. There was a little dip while we moved house and everything like that. And then Q4 is basically upon us. So basically been doing Q4 sourcing since September. So yeah, but I would say sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just curious to put it in perspective of like where you guys are at, like how you actually created that today versus what that looked like when you quit the job and went through that 2-year period. So what did you guys, in the sake of time, since we're doing this live with the group, what questions do you guys have for Jeff? We talked, I think the biggest nugget I've breakthrough I've kind of had talking, Jeff, is early on how you broke through the conversation. You talked about making that shift from kind of doing the business part-time to really breaking things out.
Right.
How did your belief shift during that season? Did you guys, just to go back to that one more time, did you guys, I mean, because you start this business and your first thought is like, how do I do this? And you don't really know it's possible. And then you know that it's possible, but it's like, wow, this is work. How did you shift into like that mindset? Like, I'm just curious.
Taking a lot of advice from, a lot of the webinars we've had and stuff like that, about, reading some great books and trying to shift your mindset that way. The other thing, I think, when we started on early, it's like, man, how are we going to do this? We're only spending like $100 every few weeks, and then, one thing we did use was we leveraged our tax return the first year. And so that kind of gave us like some injection of cash and stuff. And there was like peaks and, like, yeah, I made my first 1,000, or, I made my first $1,000 day or whatever. And then it was like frustration, because it's like, oh, when is this gonna, take off more? Because one of the, I'd say, mistakes, but we kind of needed to do it. My wife reminds me from time to time, it's like, well, the money, it was profit and the money was there, and we needed to use it. Was I took some of my profits out. I know you've mentioned earlier I could have maybe quit my job a little sooner. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a mistake, because it's like we needed it. Our minivan broke down at one point, and so we just took a lot of the profit out of that of my business for that. So so there was some frustrations there with that. I think at one point, we started to see, especially when we were tracking it through Inventory Lab, the profits and stuff. Like, man, I made my first $1,000. Like we could really do this as a business. Like this could really go somewhere. And then, man, we made like $3,000 or $4,000 this month. Hustling in fourth quarter or something like that. And it's like, man, and so that helped along the way, amongst the frustration. Then all of a sudden it's like we had this little victory, like right at our peak frustration. It would be all of a sudden like, oh, wait a second, looking at this, we just made a couple of $1,000s in profit. Like, oh, this is great. And then, just seeing that we could do it. And like I said, like focusing in on what we were good at, and looking at our why and our vision for this, like, why were we doing this? Part of it was definitely just to get out of my job, but like you said, it's a lot of like financial freedom and stuff. Hopefully that answers that question a little bit, but Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just trying to get to the core of just what this
Yeah.
is, you know, how your belief system changed. You mentioned you got clear on your why, which is
Yeah.
obviously is fundamental. And for you guys, the why was just simple to leave the job and create financial freedom.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of driven you through that. And you went through the phase of frustration. And what kind of, I mean, the why is kind of what carries you through that season. But what's,
Right.
what else changed for when you, I mean, from even last year to this year? I mean, your budget obviously increased. Did you guys like inherit a bunch of money from your rich uncle or something? Or how did you
Yeah. So we got some capital a few ways without rabbit trailing too much. I started working on my credit because I'm from England originally. I didn't really have any credit, so I listened to when Sam Crowley got on and fixed his credit. So I kind of followed a lot of what he had recommended back then. I think it was like the first or the second, probably the second webinar that you did with Sam Crowley. So that really helped me to build credit, and we're not like get in debt people per se, but we saw that once we got to a point where we were really comfortable with like 99% of what I was sourcing was making profit, not half of what I was sourcing was making profit.
Right.
Once we felt a lot more comfortable with that, that's when we started leveraging a little bit of credit. And then my in-laws, they they saw that, okay, we needed just a little bit more, and then that would kind of tip us over, enabling us to quit our jobs. So they gave us a little bit of money too. But it wasn't, that wasn't like year one or anything like that. That was like, they'd seen me do it for like 2.5+ years at that point.
Yeah.
Seeing that, hey, he's actually making some money and this isn't just some pyramid scheme here.
Yeah.
So, like, I got a business for you, sell on Amazon. So
yeah, it's funny. My family has similar experience, but okay. So you after kind of proving yourself for 2.5 years, you did raise some capital to kind of kickstart the business. And so I was just curious what that looked like. And that's
I think it was like a progressive mind shift. Aside from like, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there. No, I was just gonna say, I think it was definitely a progressive mind shift. Like when I initially started, it would have blown my mind to have been thinking to sell tens of thousands, let alone hundreds of thousands of dollars, and going into the millions here soon worth of stuff. And now, like I talk about it, my wife sometimes still gives me like this deer in the headlights look, like, you just say like 100,000. But so I think a lot of it was like a gradual mind shift, as well as like being able to, like what we said earlier, stop and refocus. I probably had a couple of times where I did that, but the last one before like we really increased our income and I quit my job was probably a pivotal one. So I'd say over time, and I know sometimes we kind of resent like the process, so to speak. Like it's frustrating going through the process of learning, of selling. We'll get like infringement emails, and or there's like, well, the 3 categories that I mentioned, like they're all gated categories. So like
categories, brand gatings, there's all these
right
and things. Yeah.
Right. There's so much, even now, more than when I initially started, kind of hurdles, shall we say. But like that process kind of refines you, it like sharpens you, and it grows you, So I would say, like, it, bar the 1 or 2 moments we mentioned, it's been like a really gradual process of just kind of like growing and realizing my potential in all this, and kind of change, and so that gradual kind of renewing of my mind, like changing my mindset for that. So
yeah, it's interesting you put it like that, Jeff. And I want you guys to listen to this part too, because maybe you're here today to understand this process, that all of us go through the process. Like, and each of us has like a different process. Like, Like I didn't make money on the internet for the first 8 years that I was, so you're way ahead of me. And I was, you know, I came from a similar place, Jeff, tried different businesses and, you know, just didn't have success, but there's a belief shift that has to happen because I've learned this and you've learned this, that your business can only grow to the extent that you as the leader and the visionary of that business grow. Because without a vision, the people perish, and no one's going to pack and prep if there's no product to pack and prep because you didn't buy any, right? So it all starts and stops, but there's a mindset shift and a belief shift. And I've seen it happen. I was asking you about that because I've seen it happen in Grant's life. I've seen it happen with Devin. I saw it happen with Zach, with Gary Ray, with Samantha, with Craig Soderdahl, with you, with so many members of our group that have gone through that. And so much of it is a belief. But so how did you, I'm just curious, when you were in that process, and, you know, scripture talks about this too, like, as, you know, man sharpens, or iron sharpens iron, man sharpens man. And we all go through this refining process. And sometimes it's very frustrating, even at God, to be like, why am I like, I've been kind of feeling this way recently, to be transparent. Like, just things aren't easy. Life's not always easy. And sometimes you're in flow and then sometimes you're not, but it's in the refining process when you're not that usually you mentioned stop and refocus. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that, because a lot of times, at least from my humble experience, I've learned that God will like bring everything to a screeching halt that's not supposed to be there. And then it's our job just to let go of that stuff and cut it all out and just say, what's the one thing I can focus on? And when you focus on your strengths, I talk about this all the time with strength finders on our hangouts, it's amazing what does happen when it's not like you added more to do. And maybe this is a lesson for you guys watching, but it's what you're not going to do. And so maybe for some of you watching and in our group, this new year is not going to be about more, but it's going to be about less. And it feels good just to say that. Maybe, you know, maybe it is letting go of certain things, pack and prep. There's certain things that people just, weigh people down. But Randy says Jeff qualifies for the American Express Black Card. So I think you've officially been you've been blessed by Randy. So
there we go. Yeah, send me the invitation.
Welcome to the club. So
hey, secret card.
Let me ask just something, man. You know, you mentioned this like ugly process. Like, did you ever if with the wisdom you have now, going back in time, what were some of the early mistakes that you made? Because it's not all like, did you ever buy a product that was bad?
Yeah, I bought lots of products, especially the first year. You know, like if I had access to the black card when I first started, probably be in a lot more debt now than I am. But yeah, I mean, I made a lot of I would say don't what's the word? You know, just don't resent the small beginnings, so to speak. You know, I
like the process.
Like the process. Again, it's kind of going back to that. But I mean, I bought a lot of, when I didn't really understand keeper charts, and I was just like, well, I'm eyeballing this. This looks good. I didn't use Inventory Lab for probably the first 6 months. So, I don't even know what I was making, so to speak, those first few months. I mean, I made some bulk purchases that were on offer through various places that didn't pan out. And I lost, quite a bit of money on that, which probably also slowed me down, when you spend $5,000 on something and you only get 2,500, 3,000 back. But it's a learning experience, and in certain things. And, I subscribe to some lists that, nothing bad against lists, because I still have some replenishables, from those lists. But, there were certain ones, that were like way too oversaturated, and you'd all of a sudden see these prices just completely tank. Whereas, what you guys I know offer, you kind of limit how many people see that sort of stuff, which is really good.
For that very reason.
So I've met.
Most of the lists in our industry, they get 200 people on them and then they fill up, and there's the race at the bottom. I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask you, I mean, do you do most of your sourcing on your own, or do you subscribe to some lists? Like how much and if you do, how many lists do you subscribe to?
Well, so for when you guys offered the Q4 lists, I definitely jumped on some of that, partly just to leverage my time because I knew I was already stretched
Yep.
for looking at Black Friday deals already. Outside of, and so years ago, I did like have some like lists I had signed up for, but I just got to the point where I could find better replenishables that, you know, for 50, you know, 200, 300 people weren't seeing. So, so yeah, so when I need to leverage my time, I definitely still subscribe to lists. And like a lot of the stuff that you guys have been offering with, I'm not on the OA chatter, but just like some of the stuff you've been offering in the group has been really good there. I know he didn't pay me to say that, but I'll give you my PayPal email address at the end.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to ask you. Yeah, I'll ask you for an honest review. If you, how did the blacklist? How did you mentioned you got on our Black Friday list for the time saving, which was kind of the point. I mean, it's like you know, Devin spent, I don't know, 20 or 30 hours, probably, if not more, building those for this. What was what was your result from that?
I haven't gone like totally back at everything, you know, and kind of taken stock, but but you know, everything I've gotten from the lists and I've sourced for Q4, almost everything, you know, has sold really good. I'm trying to think of some good stuff here. I know, you know, Devin's Black Friday list, you know, some of what I saw on there was like, okay, yeah, I've got that on my list as well already. You know, and some of the things on there, you know, the ROI was just crazy. I can't think of anything. Yeah, Randy's giving a good example.
Yeah,
but,
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. We can.
No.
I am curious, and you guys watching, I've been meaning to send out an email to everyone on the Black Friday list because Devin really, like, I know he crushed it, and we've gotten some early feedback from a couple of people who bought a bunch of the DVDs, and then did a lot of merchant fulfilled, and we want to hear from you guys. If you have results from those, either post it in the group, that's probably the easiest way, or just send us an email, team@sellersecrets.com. We want to get feedback. If you got good results or if you got bad results, we want to get feedback for Devin so we can make this. If you guys like it, we'll probably keep doing this because Devin's really good at doing little pops like this, and this is a nice little pop for your business. But cool, man. I was just curious how you leverage list. You mentioned. Oh, go ahead. Do you have something?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, man. That was one piece I wanted to talk about, and there was something else that we. So just to close the loop, I do want to close the loop from the beginning. We talked about, and we kind of hit on this, but I want to make sure we cover this.
Yeah.
You feel like you kind of slowed down your process to quitting your job, which was your goal. And what was that thing that you think slowed you down that if you could go back in time, you would maybe do a little differently?
I think probably not taking as much of my profit, you know, being able to roll that in as much as possible. And like I said, we were on a really tight budget anyway. So, you know, on the one hand, I could have done it. On the other hand, it's like I needed to do what I did. You know, I would say, I don't know, you know, like focusing on the one thing. I think sometimes I did get too distracted, you know, so I would then start spending like 2 or 3 hours on learning a new process when I really needed to spend another 2 or 3 hours on my sourcing, you know, and stuff like that. So sometimes not letting the little things distract you, and sometimes opportunities will come that, you know, are too hard to pass up. But I would always ask myself now, is it kind of aligning with where I want to go? Is it aligning with my vision and stuff like that? So I think definitely one of the bigger mistakes was maybe not rolling my profits in quick enough. Would probably be the one big one. So
this is a real simple thing, and I'm just asking this question for those of you guys that are in this place where you have a goal of, and some of you guys are multimillionaires on this webinar, and so this piece maybe it can be you can do whatever with it, but you rolled your profits back in, and this is a simple thing. We talk about this in the group. Dave Ramsey teaches a debt snowball. You guys can look that up if you're not familiar with how that process works. It's essentially the same thing. You're just doing a profit snowball, and you're taking your profits, and instead of consuming them or using them for liabilities or other expenses or, you know, whatever it is. I mean, car breaks down, life happens. You just keep rolling that into business. And you guys did about a 2-year roll, and you're saying you probably could have done it faster if you weren't taking some profits off early on, but you're able to keep your day job, which is the value. Even if you hate your day job, doesn't matter.
I still had a job, and, you know, I still had profit coming on Amazon. So, you know, it worked out. And we're not talking like, you know, my first year, I still didn't, I wasn't spending like tens of thousands of dollars, you know, so, but like you say, if it compounds, and it might have, you know, saved me 3 to 6 months maybe of extra work, full-time working that I did. But it compounds for sure if you can do that. So
roll your profits as much as you can, even if you hate your day job. Leverage that. Be grateful for that blessing that it is in your life. Even if you hate your manager and you can't stand going there and talking to him every day. Like, I'm not saying that's you watching or anybody. None of us do that. And then the second thing that you did is you focused on the one thing.
Right.
Which, good night, man. Where's my focus book?
I feel like that's been mentioned in one of our, I was going to say in one of our webinars here.
Yeah, I did this. I just did a video. If any of you guys are friends with me on my personal Facebook page, I did a video on 5 things I learned in 35 years. And this is one of the things I share too. The one thing. It's a great book by Keller. It's the dude that wrote this. But and I've noticed this, man. All great people and great companies do this. Jim Collins talks about this in Good to Great too. This is another great book. He teaches on this. It's called the hedgehog principle. And it's the same thing you're talking about, Jeff. It's just essentially, you know, companies that go from good companies to great companies focus on one thing, and they focus on that's it. They become the hedgehog is like the animal that just, like, if you guys ever played Hedgehog, Sonic the Hedgehog when you were a kid on a Sega 60, I don't forget what those things were, man. I had a Game Gear back in the day, but he just gets down and rolls, and he just plows through it, you know. So your one thing was just OA. And you just decided to get good on OA, and you just put a pause on everything else. Do some retail arbitrage, it sounds like. I mean, obviously, we're all opportunists, and I'm the same way. I can't even go into the store without, if I ever am shopping with my wife, I'm just like scanning stuff because it's fun, you know. But that's not your primary focus. You just do that kind of in addition, and then you cut wholesale out, you cut private label out, at least for now. And I know you've got plans to add private label. That's kind of long-term vision. We can save that, but and I think what Randy is talking about, so the focus on the one thing. So I guess that's different for different people, right? If you like to shop, maybe your one thing is to go just do RA, like like Grant does. Grant builds a whole business doing RA. That's the beauty with this business, Jeff, is that there's really
so many different things.
There isn't a one size fits all for everybody, but you know, you've done the business and built it in a certain way and shown what's possible with it. And I believe you guys are just getting started. You know, you're just kind of hitting your stride this year. Imagine what you're going to create in the next 5 years, knowing what you know about private label and maybe following Craig's footsteps. I saw, if you guys saw in the group, Craig Soderdahl, while most of us in the group are hustling for Q4, just ripped off like 15 new private label products this month. And his margins are a little bit different than the OA. So that's definitely the future. And I'm just planting some seeds for some things that are to come in January and February of this year, because we're going to be turning a corner as a group and focusing a lot of our attention on private label in the new season. And I didn't want to bring this to you guys right in the middle of Q4, because now is the best time, as they say, to make hay when the sun is shining, right? So go get your cheddar, whatever that is. I mean, I like that you, Jeff, have done kind of some stuff above and beyond this year. You guys do other stuff, but hey man, just in closing, if you guys have any questions, put them up here before we wrap up, man. I'm just curious, what would you do different, Jeff, if you were, and we'll continue this conversation. I would love to invite you back to teach some more technical. I mean, I think we're all curious on how, I mean, I heard some of the things you said with tactical arbitrage, but for me, I'm a visual learner and it helps to kind of see things. So we'll maybe circle back with that, but I didn't want to try and tackle that whole thing on a hangout, because there's a lot that we can unpack. But if you were to go back, and you guys are, you know, congrats on your year this year.
Thanks.
We'll all be rooting for you when you cross 1 million, if it's in December or January, whenever this happens. But what would you do different, man? Looking back on the whole thing, you've already shared rolling profits and kind of focusing one thing. Is there anything else that you would have done different, knowing what you know now, if you were to start over again?
maybe I would ask more questions. You know, I know there's people in this group that are really good with it. You know, I'm not always a I really understand social media, but I'm not always on it all the time. But
Good for
like,
you.
yeah, right. Well, you know, I'm always checking, you know, different groups and stuff as well. But it's you know, reaching out to people and definitely asking questions, and making connections that way. You know, and I would probably um, have hired somebody a little sooner, you know, either to do some of my sourcing or some of my, um, you know, packing and stuff like that. And, you know, I've seen in posts in our group, you know, it's like, I know Gary said it and other people have said it, you know, as soon as they had someone do one of these things, their business just kind of went, you know, just took off more. Even though it's an expense, you know, and people think, oh, well, then I've got to pay, you know, like $300, $400, $500 out every whatever. You know, it's probably a necessary expense. So I'd probably do that sooner than what I did. But I just want to encourage everyone as well. You know, I know we're still kind of in Q4, but like, um, you know, have your deadline of when you're kind of done sending in Q4 stuff, and then take you know, some of the Christmas season to definitely. And maybe this is too early to say this, but you know, I'm coming into this probably next week or two where I'm going to start doing this. Just take the year to the next few weeks to kind of look back at what's been good, what you know, what you could improve on, but also like what this year, like you were saying, Gabe, is the one thing this year you want to focus on, and really, you know, because we all get caught up in the Q4. Plus, you know, compounding on that is Christmas and all the I don't want to say pressures, but you know, there's a lot of people feel a pressure, you know, with like all the events that might be going on and stuff like that. But really, you know, kind of have a deadline for your Amazon. What I've done is just said, okay, by this date, I'm kind of done for a week or two with Amazon stuff. Not because I'm like rah or anything like that, but just because I really want to focus on my family, but also get kind of vision for the next year and focus, okay, what's my one thing this year that I'm really going to grow in and focus on. So anyway, yeah.
Man, that's good. That's rich advice. I do that too. Maybe we'll have an unofficial group holiday since we can't get together. I've been thinking about how we do a Christmas party because we're all over the country.
Exactly.
We'll have one virtual Christmas party hangout, but then everybody
BYOB.
BYO eggnog. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
So when do you guys when's your season kind of end for the year? When do you? I mean, we're right smack in the dab. I mean, peak season technically starts in 2 days. You know, the 10th through the 20th, 10th through the 21st. When do you kind of stop your sourcing for Q4? Or do you kind of push through to January?
So yeah, I kind of gave myself December 15th was when I would have everything out. I got done a little early, so I'm not sure if that's and I've still got a few boxes coming in, but so I'm not sure if that was good or bad that, that I wasn't sourcing enough, but I overstocked as well, so I know that like my projections are you know, if I sell 50 of a product in 2 weeks, I bought 100 of them. So I've kind of given myself some breathing space as well. So I may source a little bit more Q4 stuff in the next week or so, but I personally am kind of winding down. I got a lot of paperwork to do. I'm getting with an accountant, which is one of my outsourcing things this year. I'm doing so. Yeah, so I'm almost there. You know, December 15th is kind of like my hard date, but I may get a bonus few extra days in. So
yeah, I was just curious. We've I mean, unofficially, Amazon wants us to get our stuff sent in by the 1st. So you can send stuff all the way. I mean, all the way through. And I remember Zach teaching just to send it all the way through Q4. I know Grant's going to be sending stuff in all the way through. I like your and at some level, decide what you guys want. I mean, we're in this business for a reason. So at some level, decide when family time is and just enjoy being with your families. And I think that's something we can all be grateful for this year is the success that you've had. Be grateful for what you do accomplish this year. And then we'll do some stuff in the next couple of weeks kind of to help reframe vision for the new year and to help you guys prepare yourself mentally for this new season. And then we'll be kicking off the group with our one thing this year, which is going to be private label. For the most part, we're still going to have resources for OA. The OA cheddar list will come out of beta sometime in December once we've gotten final feedback from everybody that's part of TAP and the groups that have been on that. That, by the way, that may be good for you to connect with Grant on, actually. And see, I don't know how much replens they are sourcing for that, but we've got that's kind of the one vision with that. We've got a team that we've built that's been, and they're using tactical arbitrage. That's one of the tools that they're using. I'm not sure for sure specifically how they have it set up. Maybe that's different than what you're doing, but it may be good for you guys to connect and see if there's any replen opportunities with that. Because I do know from looking on a lot of different lists, that's one of the little tips you guys can pull away is just to keep your own replen list. And that's why I asked you earlier if you guys had a secret, a secret file or whatever. It's not as glamorous as that, but
one thing with lists is sometimes you'll see like, okay, well this one has like 100% ROI, but that's the thing that everyone goes for. But if it's a good replenishable, like a month or two down the road when everyone forgets that weekly list or that daily list, you can, like, I've gone back to these lists that I previously had. I like looked at them and it's like, man, no one's selling this, or it's like $10 more than when it started tanking. So sometimes it's really good that even if like you get it and it may be a replenishable, maybe not, it's always sometimes good to circle back around like a month or two later and take a look at them again with fresh eyes, because it really you can find some replenishables that way because people forget about it and it's like they're on to the next thing, sourcing or whatever. So
oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the value of a list is you have the copy of that list. And when a list, like we do OA Cheddar, it gets released on a weekly basis. So those lists get updated, but sometimes people just look at that week and they don't go back. That's a good little ninja tip you just shared, going back and looking at the older months. That's not and oftentimes most sellers just forget or they don't go back and they don't look at those leads. And that's a good little tip of ways to find replens. Because you get that's one thing I've learned, and we'll say this in summary, there isn't like one magical formula for getting replens. It's like you get good at sourcing and you find replens.
And you have your own way of doing it.
So, hey, some quick resources, guys, and then we're going to wrap up. Thank you guys all for being on live today. It's always fun to hang out with you guys. We're going to do more of these coming up. Randy gave some good tips. Looks like Bree at bookskeep.com can help with, I think she does bookkeeping, and I think she does tax stuff too.
That's cool.
I'm not for sure. I don't want to get into that. We'll do some more resources out in the future. But I want to say one last question, dude. Alexander had a quick question about when would you start lowering prices on inventory that you purchased for Christmas and it didn't sell?
Like you said, the peak season is still coming up, in the next 10 days or so. So I would keep an eye on it in that week. And then like maybe the 18th or 20th, really start to kind of lower it. That's just kind of what I would do. I personally have my repricer. I use App Eagle. So I have my repricer price to where I'm comfortable, and then I'll go through like my minimum price stuff and see if there's any wiggle room. So I've had stuff where it's like I've set my margin to like, okay, $1 profit, and then I'll still make $20 on it. So I mean, it's probably like 18th to the 20th would be when I would start really taking a good look at stuff that hasn't sold, if you don't think it's going to sell. Like I think video games, for example, they'll sell past past Christmas for sure. So if you haven't sold through, just kind of keep it within your profit area, and you'll make some money on them still, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a good that's probably the best advice I could give you guys. Just sell through the season. And so even if you take time off, have your repricer set up before you and we aren't actively sourcing for the season anymore, and have your stuff sell, because people I mean, if you think about it, most people procrastinate on buying Christmas gifts. That's why the 10th through the 20th is kind of that's what that season is the procrastinators unite and we buy all of our presents together. And but then people have returns and you get the socks from Aunt Martha and they don't fit, so you send them back in, and that happens, and then you respend all the gift cards and all that stuff happens in January. So yeah, we like to say, I mean, sell everything you can in Q4, and then stuff that you have, you can liquidate it towards the end of the season and get ready for next year. That's a good one. So hey, Alexander says thanks. I think he said mate.
You're welcome, mate.
So thanks,
That's too Australian.
Being on, man. It's like 8 o'clock at night over at the UK. So Grace, appreciate you being on live. Great book recommendation. I think she might have read this. I think what Randy was talking about with the black card is the amount of inventory you guys spend. I think he's saying that you could just throw it on a black card, and then I don't know what black card services you get. Cause I'm not part of that club yet, Randy. Trying to kill off my black cards. Actually, I'm in a battle of Capital One, crushing that. It's part of our vision for debt freedom. But anyways, man, hey, appreciate you making some time to jump out here, Jeff.
Thanks for having me.
I picked up some simple things. I mean, even if today you get the message of less is more, and that sometimes it's not always about adding a fancy new software or tool. Like there isn't a secret source other than you do it all. But appreciate you making time, man. And we'll have to circle back on some more technical stuff in the new year, but
definitely. Thank you for having me.
For sure, man. Cool. Viola, everybody else in the group, appreciate you guys being on. Hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day. Keep taking action through Q4. Kevin Lepp, appreciate you being on. A couple of you guys were jumping on at work. Appreciate you guys being on, and more good stuff to come. So have an awesome day, guys. Jeff, we'll see you soon, man.
God bless, guys. Have a good one.